Hello and welcome to Wizards, Warriors, and Words, a fantasy writing advice podcast. I'm Jed Herne, author of The Thunder Heist, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, starting with Rob.
I'm Rob Hayes, author of Along the Razor's Edge and the War Eternal series.
Dirk.
I'm Dirk Ashton, author of the Paternus trilogy.
I am Michael R. Fletcher, author of Blackstone Heart and things.
I love that black cover you've got behind you.
Yes,
It looks beautiful.
That's
Yeah, Mike has like a special edition matte black cover of Blackstone Heart, and it looks...
It's a hardback too.
Yeah. I had to go back to Felix after I made several attempts at doing that, and I just went back on my hands and knees and was like, I have money, help me. And he actually, this is not the same cover. It's not just a matte black version of the same cover. It's actually different art. The tower and stuff in the background is different. Felix
the font
is a
is
man
different.
god.
Yeah.
Felix is awesome. Wizard.
We will have him on one day for sure. He did for listeners who may not be aware, he did our podcast artwork. So if you like that,
for free.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
Crazy.
He did Felix did the interior piece for the special edition of Wrath of Gods, my book too, for that Kickstarter.
Which just closed last week as you're listening to this, although as we're recording it, it's still live. So who knows how it goes.
Felix also does all of my artwork because I don't go anywhere else anymore. I love him so much. Whenever I write a new book, I just wander over to Felix and go, make it pretty.
No, actually, Felix did the artwork for book 2. Book 3, the artwork will be done by John Anthony DiGiovanni, who did all the covers for Paternus and did the sub press edition of A Little Hatred. So he's moving on to the big time.
Anthony is good, but holy crap, is he expensive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he deserves. I believe artists deserve everything they can get. Yeah. But it sure was nice when it was just you and me using him, wasn't it?
Yeah. When you could be like,
He was just as the fear. I'm worried Felix is going to go that way to the point where he's just like, he's so big, I can't afford him.
Mike even told me after I saw the Ghost of Tomorrow and I was rebranding the covers, the cover for the first book, I got all, Mike, who is that? I'm not telling. He was like, I'm not telling you, you can't steal him, because Mike was the only one using him, because they're actually somewhat related, I believe.
Yeah, who is he? He is my wife's brother's wife's nephew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're probably equally related to this person then, with that pretty much connection.
But I mean, like I have been in the same house. We've had like meals together. Okay. And at some point I was talking about cover art and someone was like, oh, you should get Anthony to do it. And I'm like, who the fuck is Anthony? And they're like, that guy right there. I'm like,
and I asked him and he said, I actually go by John. I kind of screwed up on my site. And I was like, okay. But then Michael, who's related to him, calls him Anthony. So
everyone in the family calls him Anthony. I don't know what's going on there. Beats me.
I finally just asked him straight out. And he told me call him John.
To be honest, it happens for the first.
We're going to try to get. We're actually going to try to get him and him and Felix onto a.
Absolutely, for like a cover art thing.
Maybe Pen Astrich actually would be great too.
Yeah, right. Definitely put that down for a future episode. So today's episode is going to be all about querying and submitting books to agents and publishers. So we all have slightly different sort of levels of experience with this. I've not had a successful query for a novel, but I have had a successful query for my interactive fiction game that I'm writing for Choice of Games at the moment. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. But Rob and Mike and Dirk, do any of you want to kick things off to start with?
Sure. I can say I have experience with pitching agents, fair amount of successful experience, which didn't necessarily lead to published novels, but one did. So my first agent was Cameron McClure over at the Donald Mass agency. She's for real. The second time I pitched books, I landed Ian Drury over at Shield Land in the UK. But I also had, I actually had a choice of agents at that time because I think I pitched 3 agents and all 3 came back with, like with interest. None of it, nothing came of it. But so that's just sort of my background. Do you want me to, should I just sort of go into like my philosophy on how to pitch agents? Because it's a little, I think, different than what everyone says and what everyone is told. So people write queries, synopses, their pitches. And what I keep seeing is writers hate writing a synopsis because it's super boring, right? That's because you're doing it wrong. At every single stage, the point of what you're doing isn't to summarize anything. It is to sell your book. Mm-hmm. So if you go into it trying to sell your book, ignore reality, ignore the truth, ignore what your book is actually about. No, I'm not kidding.
No, I agree.
You write something that's awesome and that sounds amazing. And because if you can't write 2 pages that sound really cool, then why would they think you can write a book? So write your 2 pages of, holy shit, this is awesome. This sounds like an amazing thing. That gets your foot in the door. That gets you requests for complete manuscripts. And the cool thing is these people get so many books, so many submissions. By the time they actually read your full manuscript, they've totally forgotten how bullshit your pitch was and how they're totally unrelated. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I do this every time. Like there are similarities between the pitch, the synopsis, and the actual book, but like it's all spun to sound like cool, and it's all the feelings and I call it Michael Baying the shit out of your book. Treat your book like a Michael Bay movie and pitch it like that.
Yeah, I heard somebody describe it as you've got your grand opera, your grand, huge symphony that you've written. Turn it into a pop song. That's what you need to do for your synopsis. Catchy hooks, repeated stuff, get in, get out. One thing though that I hear people ask all the time, and that's most frightening early on, is early writers, who in the hell do I pitch? People talk about queries and going to agents. Where do I find them? How do I weed them down? How many do I send? How do I even find agents? How did you find them, Mike?
Actually, what the hell is his name? There's a Canadian science fiction author, gapping. He's like the only famous Canadian science fiction author. Shit. I've got a couple of his books somewhere, Humanoid something. Anyway, he's got a site where he talks about pitching agents and stuff. And there's like literally, and this was back in 2009, 2010 that I first found this, where he just lists agents. But the thing to do is find an agent who is either in New York or in London in the UK. And if they're not in one of those 2 cities, basically don't bother pitching them. Search them out. If you don't recognize a single author on their list, then it's probably not really worth pitching them. Read the acknowledgements in all your favorite books. And if you see somebody thanking their agent,
which they almost always do.
Yeah. That's a good
idea. There's also the literary guides. You can order these guides or get subscription to these guides, and they'll explain who's accepting queries and who's not. And one thing, follow their guidelines. If they want something in a certain font, a certain length, that covers a certain amount of information, just fucking do it. Don't try to be different. Don't ignore them. Absolutely follow their submission guidelines.
Mike, were you thinking of Cory Doctorow for famous Canadian?
No, it's not Doctorow. It's my stupid old brain. Yeah, I totally can't remember.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, there's plenty of guides online. We're about halfway through this episode as well, just for time. Okay. But yeah, definitely follow their submission guidelines. like to hopefully make Rob's life easier. Rob runs a self-published fantasy list where authors can submit books to them as they're coming out. And yeah, there are a lot of people who make life annoying for Rob by not following his guidelines when he's submitting.
Give me the Goodreads links and give me the release dates.
Yes. And if you can imagine how much utter like crap Rob is getting just from that list, like imagine what it would be like to be an agent getting hammered with like hundreds of queries every day. They don't care how good you are if you are not following their requirements. It's very understandable for them to just toss it out. So follow those. It may feel annoying to have to change these little things about you, but remember, you're asking this person to give 8 hours of their time to read the book and also to then spend hundreds of hours to represent you across the career. So it's worthwhile you actually, following their guidelines and getting off to that good start. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Sure. I mean, I've been querying agents technically since like 2012. It's been going out back a long time. I used to find them on, there was a forum I used to frequent, and somebody had posted a list, and there's probably still forums like this, and somebody posted a list of all sort of like the agents that they had found who were currently accepting fantasy submissions. So back when I was sort of releasing my debut trilogy, I pitched that to absolute loads of people. I think I sent it to about 20 odd agents and got just either ignored or rejections across the board. But that was a long time ago. And then like a couple of years ago, I found, I wrote a book that I thought would possibly like be able to be traditionally published. It was sort of, I thought it was very good and all that, and decided to pitch that to agents. And then, so I was looking around, who was doing that again, who was actually accepting them. And I found John Jarrold, who I recognized a load of the authors on his list of clients, which is, as Dirk and Mike were saying, is a absolute bonus. If you know them, if they're writing similar sort of things to you are, there's a good chance that the agent will like your stuff as well. And in fact, one of the things that I noticed about John Jarrold was he had originally represented John Gwynne. In the book that I wrote, I thought shares quite a few similarities with John Gwynne's Faithful and the Fallen. So I immediately thought, aha, I'll have a look at him. So I've followed his guidelines and put the submission out to him. And then just as I was looking at maybe approaching another agent, he got back to me and said, I want a full manuscript, send it to me. I was like, it was hilarious. I was actually out walking the dog at the time, and my missus was about to go to work, and I got this email from John saying, I want the full manuscript. I just rang my missus, just go, don't leave for work. I need a hug. I'm so nervous.
Nice.
So nothing's come of it yet, but still hoping.
Fingers crossed.
But he is representing you now, though.
Yes, he is.
And
He's
submitting to publishers. Yeah, putting it out. Yeah, so you have an agent.
I do indeed.
He also was the agent for Garrett Hanrahan, one of my other favorite authors as well. Author of God of Prayer, which is a great book. Yep. And we've had Gareth on our show as well, so you can go back and check out our episode with him. Rob, do you have anything else to mention with that?
Not really. I mean,
about my
follow the guidelines. Like every agent who is accepting submissions will probably have a website with guidelines on how to submit. Read through them, follow them, and then there's a few other things. Okay, you're going to need like a little elevator pitch probably. Try and make that as good as possible. They'll generally ask for your first 3 chapters, maybe 5 chapters. So you've got to make those as good as possible, especially your first chapter, because a lot of agents, I think, will probably read the first page and will know whether or not they want to just bin it. They might not know by then if they want to take it any further, but if they read the first page and they know that they want to bin it, they're not going to read any more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also they've seen so many books, so they can tell straight away what the caliber of your writing is like. from that first impression.
Exactly. But the other thing is, don't get disheartened if you do get rejected.
Yeah.
And that's a major one. For a start, it may just be the book isn't right for them, but it may be right for another agent. A lot of agents will say this to you, like even if you get a rejection, they'll be like, that I didn't feel like this book was right for me, but good luck in finding another agent, finding someone else, because like anybody, they are people and they have preferences, things that they like, things that they don't like, things that work for them. I mean, they're just like you in the way that you might like this book that other people don't like, but then you might hate this book that other people love. So yeah, don't get disheartened just if one agent comes back and says that this isn't for me.
Absolutely.
And especially as there's so many factors to take into account. It may be that the book wasn't right for them. It may be that they think the book is good, but it may not sell in the current traditional published market.
They may just be representing someone who's wrote a book that's very similar and they don't want to compete.
Exactly.
And don't, following on that, like Mark Lawrence, I think submitted one and got an agent and got published. And it's been like that for his career. And then for every one of those, there are thousands of Patrick Rothfuss and J.K. Rowlings, right? Who got rejected again and again and again and again and again. Name of the Wind and Harry Potter,
going.
right? So, just
There's
because
also,
you keep getting rejections doesn't mean it's not any good.
And you also have to take into account, John's told me this many times, in fact, the traditional publishing market is slow. It's easy to sit there and think, even if I've got an agent and they've sent my book to a publisher, I'm expecting a call back within 5 hours to go, yes, we want your book. But no, it can take years before anything actually moves on it. So.
Well, and then once they express interest, it can take 6 months to a year to negotiate, get through the whole thing. Yep. And then it can take another 2 years once you get the green light to actually 2 to 3 years before your book will ever hit the shelves, be released.
So be prepared. It can be a bit of a slog. It's not a fast process.
Yeah. So to close out this episode, because we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I would say I'll talk like a little bit, some tips, and then just about my choice of game stuff. Basically, once you've submitted, I think it's really important to find another project to work on to take your mind off it, so that you're not just sitting there refreshing your email and waiting for them to get back and tell you that they're going to give you $1 million for your book, because that's a great way to stress yourself out. Have something else to work on while you're doing it. Reach out to authors. You may or may not be comfortable doing this or not, but it's worthwhile. If there's an agent who you're interested in, you can try to reach out to the author who is represented by that agent and just say, hey, I'm thinking of submitting to this agent. I was just wondering if you could let me know if you've had a good experience with them. And most of the time, I think the majority of authors will probably be pretty happy to recommend their agent if they're doing a good job. And if they don't, then that's probably a red flag that you should consider. When it comes to, writing your synopsis and everything, have a look at, there's websites out there that show you successful synopsis and agent pitches. Like Writer's Digest has a good roundup that has like hundreds of successful query letters on there. So you can have a look at what is working there. Try to, emulate that structure. One of the exercises I've been doing recently is writing down blurbs for really successful books by hand, just to try to get myself into that mindset of learning how to pitch my books better. So you can do the same thing with these successful queries and write them down by hand, try to like internalize the structure of something that is, as Mike said, engaging, really hooks them, really excites people who don't know about this thing. As to my experience with Across the Broken Stars, I queried that initially many, many years ago. Didn't really hear anything back from that. In hindsight, it's because I realized that I wasn't that good at writing query letters. And also it is this weird cross-genre sci-fi and also fantasy thing. So to some of the points we brought up today, sort of hard to find a place sort of in the traditional publishing genre for that. Thunder Heist didn't query, just went straight to self-publishing for that. But with the choice of games thing, I'm working on this interactive fiction game where you're essentially a fantasy story. You're in charge of this medieval city that's under siege, and you have to defend it. And with that, there was a very extensive pitching process to Choice of Games, who are this game design company who produce these things. Before I submitted to them, I interviewed a couple of their authors on a different podcast, on the Novel Analyst Show, because first of all, I really enjoyed their games, and second of all, I was super curious about their whole process with Choice of Games and applying to that and everything. And one of those authors, Kate Hartfield, gave me some really great feedback on what it was like submitting to Choice of Games. She even read over my pitches and actually gave me some edits for those before I submitted to them, which was incredible. Please don't expect every author to do that for you, because that's certainly the exception, I think. But yeah, if you kind of know people who've gone through the process and have done it before, they can be a really great guide for you. And then, yeah, so for that, basically, sent it off to Kate. She gave me some thoughts on it, tweaked my pitches, tweaked my synopsis and everything, sent it through. And then there were multiple rounds of submissions in terms of first of all, it was you had to send through a CV of your writing stuff. Then it was pitches for game ideas. Then it was a synopsis for your game. Then it was an outline for your game. All up, it probably took maybe 6 months from starting my initial email to them to finally getting the contract and beginning to write. So yeah, as we've mentioned before, it's a slow process. So don't be disheartened if it's taking you a really long time. And it was good because I was working on other stuff throughout that time. So it wasn't ever my sole obsession. So yeah, I think to wrap this one up as we close this episode out, have a look at what's worked before in terms of successful queries. You can find agents by looking in the back of books that you quite enjoy, or there's a lot of lists out online that kind of give you agent contact details. Make sure you follow their guidelines. Can't stress that one enough. Rob is nodding his head
shit out of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, make it Michael Bay awesome, as Michael Fletcher has said. Instead of Michael Bay awesome, Michael Fletcher awesome. Make that a thing.
Fletcherize
it. And then, yeah, while you're submitting, have something else to work on so that you're not disappointed if it falls through, because probability is it probably will fall through. But yeah, you just got to keep submitting.
Yeah.
Just to end this on a depressing
Yeah,
note.
sorry to end it on a
Be
down
prepared for failure, because it's going to happen.
But the thing
Entropy.
is,
we will all die.
Yeah, you see our chaos episode for more on that. But the thing is, you will probably at the time be so shocked that what you're writing isn't getting through because you think it's perfect. But looking back on those pitches for Across the Broken Stars, I look at it now and I'm like, this is so sloppy. This is a really boring description of the book. I could do so much better than that. There's if I went at it now. So yeah, you're going to improve if you keep at it and everything. So yeah, don't necessarily feel bad about not getting through the first couple of times.
And even landing an agent doesn't mean you're going to get a publishing deal.
Exactly.
Those books there behind me, so Blackstone Heart and Smoke and Stone, were both with a very good high-end agent. Neither of them sold, and they're both doing rather well in the self-publishing world right now.
Yeah.
So failure isn't failure. It's just the door to something else.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.